The sky was already broken when the first flame appeared. Thunder roared without warning, mist tore apart under violent winds, and ancient treasures collided as if the heavens themselves had descended into chaos. In the heart of the battlefield, lotus petals burned, lightning howled, and a single cultivator stood at the edge of life and death, calm-blooded and utterly unyielding. This was not a battle of strength alone. It was a clash of wills, of forbidden flames, of ancient inheritances awakened at the brink of annihilation. And before the final strike fell, the heavens held their breath. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. It became clear that the White Lotus was not formed from any external treasure, but rather condensed entirely from the woman's own magical power. That such a formidable existence could be produced solely through a cultivation technique left Han Li deeply astonished. Yet this sense of amazement lasted only an instant. He took a deep breath, his expression darkening, and swiftly raised one arm. A faint layer of black qi wrapped around it as if alive. The qi writhed and lashed about, growing denser by the breath until it turned pitch black. At the same time, Han Li's gaze sharpened, his arm swelling violently, tripling in thickness in the blink of an eye. Moments later, a dazzling crimson glow seeped through the black qi, intertwining with it in an eerily bizarre display. Han Li cast a cold glance toward the green-robed woman. Coincidentally, she lifted her head at that exact moment, their gazes colliding in mid-air. When her eyes fell upon Han Li's grotesquely transformed arm, a sharp glint of frost flashed through them. "Go," Han Li roared. He slammed his arm downward, releasing a semicircular arc of black-red light. The moment it left his arm, it expanded explosively, stretching to over 10 meters in length. It tore through the void with terrifying force, remnants of light trailing behind it like shattered shadows, and arrived before the White Lotus in the blink of an eye. The green-robed woman raised an eyebrow at the sight of the yin devil execution. Calmly, she spat out a mist of lustrous white qi, which landed upon the lotus. In an instant, a massive lotus phantom bloomed forth from the White Lotus, enveloping both itself and the woman within its embrace. A flash of light erupted as the yin devil execution slammed into the lotus phantom, cleaving into it with ease. Yet after plunging some 10 meters deep into the mirage, its momentum slowed abruptly before coming to a complete halt. A trace of pride surfaced on the woman's face, but it vanished just as quickly. Her expression changed drastically as she saw Han Li fling a pitch-black object toward her. The moment it left his hand, it expanded exponentially, transforming into an enormous, oppressive mass that crashed downward toward both her and the lotus. "The thousand-fold mountain!" she cried out involuntarily. The towering mountain loomed above her, exuding overwhelming pressure. This ancient treasure was renowned among spell warriors. Even a mid-nascent soul cultivator like herself, wielding an archaic Buddhist secret technique, would find it impossible to withstand such a strike without suffering injury. Without the slightest hesitation, the green-robed woman formed a rapid hand seal. The White Lotus above her head, the small yellow cauldron, and her own body were instantly engulfed in a fusion of blinding white light. The surrounding air froze utterly still, then erupted violently with brilliant azure radiance. When the light dispersed, the woman reappeared. Though no longer sustained by her magic power, the lotus phantom did not vanish immediately. It dimmed, lingering stubbornly for a brief moment before being completely shattered by the descending mountain. Han Li showed no sign of triumph. Instead, he muttered under his breath, "Wind movement technique." His heart sank as he cursed inwardly. He had not expected the woman to possess such an extraordinary movement technique, one comparable to his own lightning-based movement. Unless he could somehow trap her, injuring her would be nearly impossible. A plan quickly formed in his mind, though he was far from confident in it. Her mastery of wind movement rivaled his thunderstorm wings. Still, so long as he could keep pace with her, he was certain that the terrifying might of the celestial ice flames would allow him to wound her. With that thought, Han Li raised both hands and pointed toward the black, red light, as well as the dozens of bamboo cloudswarm swords that had finally broken free from their restraints. In an instant, they shot forward with savage momentum toward the green-robed woman's position. Thunder roared behind Han Li as silver wings unfurled from his back. As for his blue light shield, he flicked his arms, causing it to rapidly shrink before slipping back into his sleeve. At the same moment, the massive black-red hand loosened its grip on the white ribbon hawk. Wrapped in black light, it streaked toward the woman as well. Yet that was not the end of his preparations. Han Li raised his arms once more. This time a blue flame leapt from his palm, crackling with unstable brilliance, its cold aura piercing to the bone. Having done all he could to restrict her movements, Han Li finally chose to close in himself. In a flash of silver lightning, he vanished, leaving only rolling thunder in his wake. When the green-robed woman witnessed Han Li unleashing so many powerful treasures in rapid succession, a sharp pain throbbed in her temples. She had initially believed that this early nascent soul cultivator possessed only a handful of peculiar abilities. Once those were restrained, dealing with him should have been effortless. She never expected that with a single exchange, he would reveal one formidable treasure after another. By comparison, the sole treasure she had deployed was already being suppressed. Accustomed to reverence among spell warriors, this humiliation ignited a surge of fury within her. Still, she understood clearly that with so many treasures at his disposal, ordinary techniques and artifacts would struggle to injure him, let alone kill him outright. Seeing Han Li vanish in a streak of lightning, she snorted coldly. At last, she resolved to expend some of her strength and end him with one of her true killing techniques. Naturally, she could not allow him to approach her so easily. As she contemplated her next move, the white lotus descended onto her head and vanished into her body. At the same moment, Han Li reappeared roughly 10 meters away in a flash of lightning. His figure blurred, and suddenly he was only 3 meters from her. With a harsh, crackling sound, he thrust his blue-flamed palm toward the yellow barrier surrounding her body. Han Li was confident that the wood-attributed barrier formed by the cauldron would shatter under the celestial ice flames. Indeed, his attack landed cleanly. Yet the woman remained unmoving, showing no intention of using her wind evasion technique. A chill crept up Han Li's spine, unease flooding his heart. At that moment, a soft white radiance blossomed from the woman's body as countless lotus petal phantoms unfolded around her. To Han Li's shock, the faint yellow barrier he had just struck endured the assault. When the white light met the blue flames, his entire arm trembled violently. As the white brilliance flared, the lotus petals swept toward him. Though their movement appeared slow, Han Li found himself utterly unable to evade them. Helplessly, he watched as a petal struck his body. Pain exploded through his chest. Han Li was sent flying backward, hurtling more than 100 meters before barely managing to stabilize himself, his body swaying unsteadily. He clutched his chest and stared at the woman in alarm. Looking up, he saw her standing atop a white lotus, spanning over 10 meters in diameter. Lotus petals drifted languidly around her while she gazed down at him with icy indifference. Every treasure Han Li had unleashed against her had been effortlessly blocked by the petals encircling her petals, far more powerful than the lotus phantom from before. Suddenly, Han Li felt a burning heat surge up his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. A bitter smile flickered through his mind. He had clearly suffered greatly in that exchange. He forcefully expelled the chaotic chi within his body and slowly lowered his hand from his chest. Glancing down, he saw that his robes had been completely shredded, revealing a tri-colored radiance beneath. His battle armor bore a massive dent crisscrossed with thumb-sized cracks. A cold breath escaped him as the pain in his chest sharpened. With a grim expression, Han Li raised his head toward the green-robed woman, only to catch a glimpse of astonishment and disappointment flickering across her face as she took in his armor. He snorted coldly, tearing away the remaining fragments of his robe to fully reveal the beetle armor. In a flash of azure light, he swept his hand across it, restoring the damaged armor to pristine condition at an unbelievable speed. Shock briefly crossed the woman's face before her cold composure returned, her killing intent intensifying. Without hesitation, she pressed a palm to her chest and began chanting an obscure incantation. A ball of azure light shot from her sleeve and landed in her hand. The light faded, revealing an ancient oil lamp, azure in color, worn with age, its surface faintly blackened. The woman hesitated for a fleeting moment, reluctance flickering in her eyes. Then she fixed Han Li with a fierce glare. A sense of foreboding rose in Han Li's heart. He had no idea what kind of ancient treasure this lamp was. This was the first treasure lamp he had ever seen. Countless thoughts raced through his mind before he made a swift decision. He shot into the sky, recalling his treasures in one motion. With a flap of his wings, he vanished. Reappearing before the frozen ribbon hawk, he grabbed it without hesitation and disappeared again, materializing at the edge of the dense fog formation. The green-robed woman stared in stunned disbelief. Since reaching her current cultivation, She had faced countless formidable opponents, but this was the first time she had ever seen a high-level cultivator turn and flee outright. However, the moment she realized Han Li had taken her ribbon, hawk fury snapped her out of her daze. Clutching the lamp tightly, she glided forward atop the white lotus, pursuing him on a surging wind. Soon after, she entered the dense fog and vanished without a trace. Azure light flashed repeatedly alongside streaks of silver lightning as the chase intensified. Thunder and wind roared in chaotic harmony. In the blink of an eye, Han Li had lured the green-robed woman deep into an unfamiliar region of the formation. There he finally halted. Casting a cold glance at the frozen ribbon hawk in his hand, Han Li let out a low chuckle. Golden lightning erupted from his palm, instantly shattering it to pieces. The ice-clad ribbon hawk shattered together with the surrounding frost. Yet when the green-robed woman witnessed this, while in pursuit, she merely let out a cold laugh. She stomped down upon the white lotus beneath her feet, unleashing a violent gale that scattered the nearby mist in all directions. Han Li narrowed his eyes, fixing his gaze on her malicious expression. Calmly, he asked, "Is fellow Taoist truly not heartbroken over the destruction of her treasure? Or do you believe my actions were insufficient to truly destroy it?" As he spoke, he casually glanced toward the cleared air, paying no attention at all to the drifting shards of ice. "Why don't you see for yourself?" The green-robed woman replied coldly, pointing toward Han Li. In the next instant, the countless ice fragments floating around Han Li suddenly lit up with brilliant white light. Startled, Han Li immediately raised his arm and released an azure mist to engulf the glowing shards. But it was already too late. The ice fragments shattered simultaneously, releasing countless specks of white light that streaked toward the woman like returning stars. The azure mist swallowed only emptiness. Seeing his attack fail, Han Li's face darkened. However, he restrained himself and did not waste further effort on techniques that might prove ineffective. Before his eyes, the white specks rapidly converged, condensing into a glowing sphere the size of a human head. With a spell seal striking the sphere, a piercing hawk's cry rang out amid a blinding flash of white light. In the next moment, the snow-white ribbon hawk took shape once more. Han Li frowned slightly, but soon noticed that its spirit was clearly weaker than before. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. It seemed that shattering the treasure had indeed inflicted damage. The hawk was not truly immortal. He was certain that after killing it several more times, it would eventually dissipate into ash. The green-robed woman paid no attention to the hawk's weakened state. With a silent wave of her hand, she ordered it skyward. The hawk spun gracefully through the air before drifting downward, transforming once more into a white ribbon. As soon as it touched her body, it vanished without a trace. Holding the bronze lamp in one hand, she brushed her hair back with the other and said in a detached tone, "Your sudden stop was meant to provoke me by shattering my magic treasure. It seems this place is your contingency plan." Han Li fell silent for a moment before replying, his eyes gleaming with spirit. "Since you understood this and still pursued me, you must be quite confident in the treasure you hold. Perhaps you could enlighten me. This is the first time I've ever encountered an ancient treasure in the form of a lantern." The woman's expression turned icy. Without the slightest hesitation, she replied, "No. How about I send you straight to the underworld?" She opened her mouth and spat a ball of nascent flame into the lantern. Immediately, specks of azure light began to slowly rise from within it. Han Li sighed softly. Sweeping his arms, he summoned a green formation flag and a red azure formation plate into his hands. He took a deep look at the woman before tossing the formation flag into the air. Striking it with a small spell seal, he hurriedly muttered an incantation. The formation flag flashed brightly, and a thick green mist suddenly spread outward, extending over 100 meters through the sky. As it scattered with the wind, the mist condensed into a 40-meter-long flood dragon, formed entirely of swirling green vapor. At the same time as he commanded the mist flood dragon to attack, Han Li caused the formation plate in his hand to glow brilliantly. He tossed it beneath him, where it instantly dissolved into white mist and vanished. Moments later, the sea of mist below began to churn violently, releasing countless threads of red azure light that shot upward in a dense barrage toward the green-robed woman. Han Li then flicked his sleeve, producing a small silver bell. In the blink of an eye, it expanded wildly and rang out with a thunderous chime, releasing powerful silver sound waves that rippled through the air. With all preparations complete, Han Li streaked directly toward the green-robed woman from above. Since he could not approach her directly, he chose to assault her with formless sound waves. Perhaps such an attack might prove effective. Of course, Han Li's true killing move was none of these overt attacks. It was Silvermoon who had long since burrowed into the ground and remained hidden. At this very moment, Silvermoon had already unraveled the purple cloud lace and was standing at the heart of the formation. She waited patiently for the green-robed woman to let down her guard, ready to deliver a fatal strike. Unaware of the ambush lying in wait, the green-robed woman ignored the restrictions and attacks unleashed by Han Li. Instead, she merely lowered her gaze to the bronze lamp flickering with weak azure flames. A sneer curved her lips. Unhurriedly, she raised her arm and deftly plucked a pea-sized flame from the lantern between two fingers. At that moment, the mist-flood dragon, the red azure threads of light, and the silver sound waves all arrived simultaneously. Yet the woman showed not the slightest trace of concern. She simply pointed toward the white lotus beneath her feet. White light flashed as the lotus began to spin rapidly. Its petals contracted inward, instantly enveloping her within an impenetrable barrier. The mist-flood dragon struck first, opening its jaws to unleash a surging breath of green mist. A single lotus petal lightly swept outward, scattering the attack with ease. Next came the red azure threads of light, which were likewise dispersed. Only the silver sound waves passed through the barrier unimpeded, though their effect remained unclear. Seeing this, Han Li formed a rapid incantation gesture. The red azure threads immediately ceased attacking the barrier and instead wove themselves into a massive net, layering upon one another to block the white lotus from all sides. Meanwhile, the mist-flood dragon collapsed into a vast sea of green fog, completely submerging the lotus. As for the silver bell, it rushed to hover before the white lotus, controlled with Han Li's full strength. The silver sound waves intensified, continuously battering the green-robed woman through the barrier. For a brief time, the woman within the white lotus appeared restrained. Yet Han Li showed no hint of relief. Instead, his brow furrowed deeply. Just as he feared the attacks were entirely ineffective, the contracted lotus petals suddenly bloomed outward without warning. Each petal gleamed with razor-sharp edges. The surrounding mist and threads of light were instantly swept away as the flower unfolded. Han Li's expression turned grim. At the center of the white lotus stood the green-robed woman, her face utterly expressionless. She held the bronze lamp in one hand and clasped what appeared to be an ordinary blue flame in the other. Her gaze flicked toward Han Li, then shifted upward to the silver bell hovering above her, still releasing sound waves. A harsh glint flashed through her eyes. Suddenly, she raised her hand and flicked the blue flame into the bronze lamp. It crackled violently, trembling for a moment before vanishing. In the next instant, an azure fireball appeared out of nowhere and slammed into the silver bell, engulfing it entirely. The woman uttered an incantation, and the surface of the bell was instantly scorched by the unknown azure devil flame. The silver bell wailed mournfully, releasing a burst of silver light in resistance. But only an instant later, it warped and melted, transforming into molten silver before collapsing completely. The azure devil flame then dispersed without leaving a trace. Han Li's face drained of color as he watched the ancient treasure be destroyed. At that moment, the green-robed woman casually plucked another azure ember from the lamp and cast Han Li a malicious glance. Cursing inwardly, Han Li flapped his thunderstorm wings without hesitation. In a burst of lightning, he vanished, leaving only rolling thunder behind. The woman showed no concern, calmly dropping the ember back into the lantern. Just as she was about to breathe spiritual chi into it, a flash of purple light erupted beneath her. A 40-meter-wide purple net surged upward from below. Before the green-robed woman could react, she heard a woman's clear laughter. In the next instant, she was completely ensnared by the purple net. A beautiful woman emerged in a flash of yellow light shortly after. She chuckled lightly and said, "Since you enjoy playing with fire, why not witness the might of my purple cloud laces, Jadison flames?" Raising her hand, the purple net ignited, cloaked in azure-white flames. Several serpentine tongues of azure-white fire burst forth viciously, striking the white lotus. In moments, the lotus was entirely engulfed in blazing blue-white flames. At that same instant, Han Li reappeared some 40 meters away, a faint smile on his face. With a flick of his sleeve, he summoned his 72 bamboo cloudswarm swords. As they shot skyward, he struck them with multiple spell seals in rapid succession. The flying swords rang out clearly and fused together, condensing into a single 20-meter-long sword. Thunder roared from within as dense arcs of lightning crackled around it, transforming the blade into a weapon of pure thunder and lightning. Still, Han Li did not stop. Taking a deep breath, he spat a thread of celestial ice flame onto the sword, coating its surface in a faint layer of blue fire. Pointing toward the sword, icy light gleaming in his eyes, Han Li commanded it forward. The sword trembled violently before cleaving straight toward the White Lotus. Only then did the green-robed woman fully realize what had transpired. With a furious cry, she flung the azure ember in her hand upward in alarm. The instant the azure ember left the green-robed woman's hand, it erupted with blinding azure light. It began to revolve above her head, producing a breathtaking spectacle. The azure-white Jadison flames burning on the exterior of the White Lotus were immediately overtaken by the lantern ember and swiftly absorbed into it. Once the Jadison flames were completely consumed, the flaming ember hovering above her head came to a halt, its light now shining just slightly brighter than before. The green-robed woman raised her finger and directed the ember to flutter toward Silvermoon. Silvermoon was instantly alarmed. Without the slightest hesitation, she pointed toward the purple cloud lace. In a flash of purple radiance, the net gleamed brilliantly as a portion of it shifted to shield her body. At the same moment, the ancient flower basket appeared in her hand. At the same time, the massive azure sword, roaring with thunder, descended from above under Han Li's command, slashing down toward the woman. Silvermoon launched her joint attack as well. The flower basket dissolved into white mist that wrapped around her body as she clasped her hands into an incantation gesture. A burst of purple light erupted, forcibly tearing open a large gap in the White Lotus barrier. Faced with the overwhelming pressure radiating from the gigantic sword, the green-robed woman's expression finally changed. For the first time since the battle began, alarm and gravity surfaced on her face. After a brief hesitation, she abandoned her attack on Silvermoon and instead gathered all of her spiritual power into the White Lotus beneath her feet. Instantly, the number of lotus petals multiplied several-fold, and countless overlapping lotus phantoms folded inward, forming an extremely dense defensive barrier. At that moment, she abruptly pointed at the lantern ember, summoning it back to hover above her head. She then lifted the bronze lantern and swept it forward. A series of azure flame phantoms appeared, accompanied by 2 additional flame embers. These embers flew upward and merged with the original ember, condensing into a fist-sized azure fireball. At that very instant, the colossal sword slammed into the lotus petal barrier. Thunder roared as a deafening explosion erupted. White radiance, golden lightning, and icy blue flames intertwined in violent chaos. Though the lotus petals were extraordinarily resilient, the divine Devilbane lightning and the celestial ice flames were forces of terrifying might. Individually, they might not have been enough to overcome the lotus phantoms, but united within the colossal sword, the combined power of the 72 bamboo cloudswarm swords eventually tore through the lotus mirages. Despite their desperate resistance, the phantoms shattered and dissipated into countless specks of starlight. Unhindered, the gigantic sword continued its descent, only to be calmly intercepted by the azure fireball. Han Li's expression grew solemn. Though the strange azure flame inspired fear within him, he was equally eager to measure the celestial ice flame against the lantern's mysterious fire. The collision between the massive sword and the azure fireball was utterly silent. Golden lightning and icy blue flames were swallowed in an instant, completely consumed by the azure fire. The flame then surged outward, engulfing the colossal sword in its entirety. As the bamboo cloudswarm swords were Han Li's bonded magic treasures, he felt their condition acutely. The moment the azure flames fully enveloped the sword, his mind trembled violently. Unbearable heat and searing pain flooded his senses. His body temperature spiked abruptly. He could practically feel his blood boiling. Terrified, Han Li immediately formed an incantation gesture and pointed toward the sword. It flickered violently before exploding apart, reverting into dozens of individual flying swords that scattered in all directions. He had believed this would rid them of the strange flames, but when he clearly saw the outcome, his expression changed drastically. Every single flying sword was still wrapped in raging azure flames. Han Li's face wavered as his physical condition rapidly deteriorated. Sweat poured from his body as he gritted his teeth in shock. Hastily cycling through multiple hand incantations, he commanded the dozens of strands of spiritual sense, controlling the swords to soar upward. The swords spun wildly through the air, attempting to shake off the flames. Having already witnessed the silver bell melt into molten liquid, Han Li was now gripped by deep fear. If his bonded magic treasures were destroyed, both his vitality and spiritual sense would suffer catastrophic damage. At that moment, the shattered lotus phantoms were swiftly replaced as new lotuses rose from below, sealing the breach once more. The green-robed woman coldly glanced at Han Li's flame-wreathed swords and sneered upon seeing them struggle futilely in mid-air. She did not rush to act. She merely waiting for Han Li's bonded treasures to be destroyed, for his cultivation to suffer a crippling blow. Yet moments later her sneer froze, replaced by astonishment. The bronze lantern in her hand was no ordinary magic tool. Strictly speaking, it did not even belong to her personally. It was one of the two lineage treasures passed down by the Mulan tribes. Sage Lo had obtained this treasure not only due to her profound cultivation, but also because she was the most powerful female spell warrior among the Mulan. More importantly, she was the only woman whose status rivaled that of the soaring tribe's Saintess Tianlan, earning immense reverence from high-grade spell warriors. Even the Mulan's 3 divine sages treated her with respect. Since acquiring the ancient lantern, she had used it only a handful of times due to its numerous restrictions and peculiarities. Once its maximum number of uses was reached, the lantern would be reclaimed and passed on to the next suitable bearer. It was a treasure of extreme importance within the Mulan. Yet the lantern's most vital purpose was not combat. Nevertheless, in battle it was terrifyingly effective. Over generations it had been used to slay countless formidable foes and annihilate innumerable treasures. Once its flames enveloped a target, be it ancient or magical, the fire could not be extinguished. Wood-attributed treasures in particular were instantly reduced to ashes. And yet, though Han Li's flying swords were clearly wood-attributed magic treasures, they had been engulfed by the lantern's flames for quite some time without showing the slightest sign of destruction. As she processed this shock, a sudden flash of purple light erupted above her head. A dense purple cloud abruptly appeared. The green-robed woman froze and turned her gaze toward Silvermoon, who had seized the opportunity to activate a restriction using the purple cloud lace. Spinning gracefully, Silvermoon released a fragrant pink mist that flooded the area, engulfing the white lotus in the blink of an eye. The green-robed woman snorted coldly and glanced at the lantern in her hand. After a brief hesitation, she chose not to use it further and instead raised her arm, summoning a yellow jade pendant. Just as she prepared to activate the pendant and deal with Silvermoon, the pink mist suddenly churned, its fragrance intensifying. Moments later, countless handsome men and beautiful women emerged from the mist, embracing one another in shockingly intimate displays. The green-robed woman's face flushed crimson. "You shameless demon courting death," she snarled. Her complexion swiftly paled as yellow light burst from the jade pendant. Yellow mist spread outward, dispersing the pink fog. Silvermoon, however, was nowhere to be seen. The green-robed woman sneered, but just as she was about to search for Silvermoon, a sudden thought struck her. Her expression changed as she hastily turned toward Han Li. In the brief moment Silvermoon had distracted her, Han Li had already recondensed his flying swords into their massive form and recalled them before himself. He stared at the weapon with a grave expression. Another wave of shock hit the woman when she saw that the swords remained unscathed. This time she refused to remain idle. She raised the bronze lantern once more, but just as she hesitated over whether to expend another of its precious uses, Han Li suddenly pressed both hands to his chest. One hand held swirling white frost, the other flickering blue flames. He spat out a stream of azure chi, merging the two energies together. With a rush of wind, an egg-sized purple flame formed in his palm. Han Li pointed with his free hand. The flame burst apart, transforming into a small fluttering bird. It spread its wings and darted straight toward the gigantic sword, still wrapped in the lantern's azure flames. With a soft bang, an astonishing sight unfolded. Purple flame and azure flame clashed upon the sword's surface. Both blazed fiercely, neither yielding as they struggled to devour one another. For a time, neither side gained the upper hand. Han Li watched tensely. The green-robed woman, however, was utterly shaken. How could these purple flames withstand the fire of her lantern? Had she not witnessed it herself, she would never have believed it possible. Her shock quickly transformed into an overwhelming desire to kill Han Li. How could a mere early nascent soul cultivator possess so many heaven-defying abilities? Should he reach mid or late nascent soul stage, he could sweep the entire Mulan Plains without rival. Her expression darkened. She flung the bronze lantern into the air, where it hovered 3 meters above her, then solemnly sat down. At this moment she had made her resolve. Even if she exhausted every remaining use of the bronze lantern, she would kill Han Li without fail. Han Li noticed her actions, his heart sinking. He cursed bitterly inwardly and resolved to retreat. Though he still possessed the purple apex flames and the blood devil sword, there was no need to gamble everything here. The woman before him was no ordinary mid-nascent soul cultivator, and he had no desire to perish together with her. Just as these thoughts surged through his mind, a silhouette suddenly burst from the mist and charged toward them, catching both by surprise. At that moment of distraction, the purple cloud formed by the purple cloud lace above the green-robed woman's head suddenly parted. A streak of blinding white light shot forth at incredible speed, rushing toward the bronze lantern. In a flash of white radiance, the lantern was completely engulfed and violently dragged back into the depths of the purple cloud. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.